So please welcome the panel on stage.
Okay, so the panel is, excuse me, creating a successful business. And I have a few microphones here that we can pass around. I think we're good on chairs. There you go. All right, we have everybody, wonderful. So again, it's about creating a successful business and looking at that definition of success. It's around profitable, it's around sustainable, it's around growth, but to achieve these, there has to be some measure of continued differentiation or continuous innovation, and since the title of this conference is Inside Innovation Exchange, innovation seemed to be a good theme to build around the idea of growth. And so what we're going to be talking about today is applying innovation to be successful, to create that successful business. And we're going to keep this broadly defined innovation, and I'm going to let our panelists start to frame that out for us and also introduce themselves. So unfortunately, I'm just going to go down the line on this first one. I promise I won't keep that repetitive nature throughout the whole thing, but to give us a brief introduction of themselves and to start to frame your definition of innovation and the scope that innovation covers.
Okay. Well, I'm Julie Dweling, Managing Director of Matrix Lab in the Netherlands. Matrix Lab started as a marketing insights company, purely online, grew in Europe and United States, and recently merged with Macromail in Japan, Korea, so really getting global. I think that was not so innovative, but at least a change. And I think innovation is a combination of technology, getting the right insights, and human capital, because that goes beyond technology. We can use technology, but if you're not able to get the right insights out of there, then it doesn't mean anything.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. My name is Stefan Thun. I'm CEO of IIeX, responsible for all of our international business outside of North America. I've been with the company now for 7 years. I founded the 3 different companies myself, one of which I sold to Merits, and ever since I am with Merits. We've recently formed IIeX after acquiring Allegiance, a software company out of Utah, Salt Lake City. And ever since, we've combined the award-winning platform with the research services, data analytics, program management, and industry expertise of Merits Research, focusing purely on customer experience. For me, I typically look at innovation from two angles, and I look at small innovations and what I would call big I innovations, which is more about business transformation. I do think this industry, the research industry as such, is okay in the small innovations, but I do also think that the industry does a pretty poor job in big I innovations. So really asking yourself the question of what business are we in, and transforming the industry is not something that many companies in this industry have done really successful.
Thanks, Stephen.
Hi, good morning. I'm Liz Mush. First career was advertising, then dabbled in client marketing, and entered the insights space, if you will, with Millward Brown, followed by Added Value Europe, and more recently Ipsos, where I was global CEO of the loyalty division and then the ASI division. And for a couple of months now, I am free and enjoying my freedom and time, to be very honest, dabbling in different things like nonprofits and independent board directorships and some strategic advising. I've always been, I think for others as well, a change agent. I just happen to have a taste for transformation, maybe because I'm not comfortable with the status quo, and I think actually that, and I'm delighted to take part in this, obviously, to talk about the role that innovation should play in helping organizations succeed. I think climate, in the sense of environment, is very important to allowing innovation to succeed. I think we'll come back to that. And I do agree with Stefan that I don't think that this industry as a whole has done a good job of that. I think right now, in fact, there are a lot of organizations here that are pushing the classic market research industry to make us basically respond. And I think we should talk about that. I think we should be open about the fact that research as a whole has not been very good about questioning itself and being open to change.
Well, before we move on to Steve, because he said he was going to do interpretive dance as the method of introduction, let's stick with that for just a second. Well, and we've heard two people say that this industry hasn't done a particularly good job of maintaining the transformation to be out in front of client needs, and that's kind of where it all ends up. What industries would you look to as an example of ones that have done well at making that kind of continuous transformation? Are there a couple of industries that come to mind as particularly good?
It's obviously easy to go to tech, but I think that's a cheat, so let's put tech aside. I think there's a lot more innovation in pharma, especially obviously the medical sector. I think of a couple of categories like automotive and energy, where I think they also have been slow to make change, but I think they are reeling ahead in a way maybe that we are not yet reeling ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would typically look at companies rather than industries, and I think typically lots of industries over time, you'll see probably a handful of big players really surviving, and some industries even less than that. Typical example of the Pepsis and the Cokes really owning a specific space. So I look rather at companies within industries and see whether they are transforming and how they do that. And I think there are some good examples. For example, look at IBM starting as a mainframe computer company, and now being a consulting firm, completely changed their business model over time. I think you can also look at some other companies like Kodak, who've done a pretty bad job in seeing the change in the marketplace in the beginning, and almost died as a result out of that from a point of market leadership. And I think they've never really asked themselves a tough question of, what business are we really in? I think they've looked at themselves as a company that produces prints, as opposed to being in the business of potentially, capturing and sharing memorable moments. So if they would have looked at their business from such angle, they could have probably innovated and came up with things like Snapshot and Instagram, and that way would have been able to create much higher shareholder value by now.
Thanks. And now we'll move on to Steve here.
Okay.
For your dance.
Answer the question or introduce myself? Dance. Well, I was joking with Greg that my voice may or may not last through the session, so at that point I would have to pantomime all my points. So I think it'll last, though. I think we're in good shape, and you will not be blessed with that vision. For those who don't know me, my name is Steve August. I am currently the Chief Innovation Officer for Focus Vision worldwide, and my career started out of a small consulting company, qualitative consulting company called KDA Research, and then in the process of working with that company, developed an online platform for mobile diaries, bulletin boards, insights communities called Revelation, which was then acquired by Focus Vision last year, and now I have become the Chief Innovation Officer of Focus Vision. So as I move into this title, it was one of the things I started to sit down and look at, well, what what is innovation? What does that actually mean? It's such a term that's like ethnography and community. It means so many different things to different people. And to me, innovation is really leaps in efficiency and effectiveness. Whether you can do something a lot better or do what you do much more efficiently and faster. And those leaps unlock value, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's a new capability, whether it's a new experience. And the degree of those leaps are the degree of the value. And the big leaps, you know, are really obvious, like thinking about the car versus the horse, electric light versus whale oil, Google versus a set of encyclopedias. So that's my framing of it and how I try to look at things.
Great, thanks, Steve.
And so I'm François Pétavy. I'm the CEO of a company called IIeX. So our clients call us a crowdsourcing agency. And in essence, what we are a community of 300,000 creative consumers across the globe. We're on a platform. You can visit IIeX.com. And these people are basically challenged by our clients, by brands, to come up with new ideas for new products, new services, new packaging, point of sale, communication, etc. And these people create against those briefs, basically, in a matter of weeks. And what you get out of that process, which is crowdsourcing, is two things. You get collective intelligence. You will see that across the world, and we have 160 countries participating. You could see that you have clusters of ideas, and this kind of tells you the future, where people think you can go in the future. But also you get gems, and you get elements that probably, and you're going to buy those from the winners of this competition. This will be IP that actually can bring into your innovation or marketing or communication process to develop new products, services, communication. So that's the core of what we do, and we do that for the world's biggest brands. And more and more you can see advertising or products who have actually the crowdsourcing ingredient coming from us in your daily life. So my observation of innovation is pretty much about, and we talked about Kodak, I think it's very much about survival. Consumers are evolving very fast with the dynamics of the internet. They're empowered, and so they're moving very, very fast, and it's kind of catching up with them, right? Or seeing the future before they see it, so that you can actually come up with the right solutions for them, so that when they are in the future, you're already there and you're waiting for them. That will be my kind of more serious definition, so it's about relevance. A less serious one, I think I will put an analogy between innovation and love, in some sense, because so first you cannot decide love. It's a mindset, and you have to be open for it, but you cannot decree, oh, today I'm going to be in love. That doesn't work. Innovation is probably the same. It takes two, and it changes you for good, which is another thing I think that in parallel. But most importantly, it comes from unexpected places very often, and I think that's something we'll be happy to develop, and this is something that we observe every day on IIeX.
Fantastic. Thank you all. So I love the love analogy, and I want to come back to this idea of the unexpected in just a moment. As we've gone through describing what innovation, how we think about innovation, it's been in effectiveness and efficiency. It's been in the transformational and the, I guess marginal is a good word to use. It's been in some in looking at the business models or how do you define your business. So we've talked about a few different ways to think of innovation. As we're wanting to operationalize these different components, what does an organization need to do to expose themselves to the unexpected or create the culture that allows themselves to be open to love? I'm just going to call innovation love from now on. So what are the things that an organization needs to do to make those changes happen, to embed innovation within their organization?
I think one of the things is starting with people. Obviously, you have to have the courage to bring in people with different backgrounds, different disciplines. And I think, again, if we look at our big classic research agencies, we don't always do a really good job of bringing in people from the outside and integrating them and appreciating the view that they bring to the party. I would say that another point is that, the people who are in charge of core business, core clients, driving your big projects, who are responsible for basically the revenues of your organization, they really can't be the people that are responsible for imagining tomorrow and forcing change and thinking about completely different business models, because it's hard to do both, protect your pocket, and at the same time think about a completely different future where your pocket is filled by different things.
Is this, is the idea of risk tolerance built into that as well?
Oh, I think it's totally, yeah, I think it starts with that. I think true innovation anyway is all about being uncomfortable, being, accepting ideas that you think are absurd or goofy or stupid. I think one thing is important is ideas that are very easy to criticize, right? And we do a good job of criticizing them because we're rational people. I think actually one of the things we have to do is force ourselves when we have new ideas. It's not criticize, but force ourselves to say what's interesting and force ourselves to say, okay, what could I do to take the problem that I have? What could I do to take that away? Yeah, I think the attitude is very important.
So,
I think it starts even one step before that, and it is understanding your client, because the reason of this business is putting insights in the market for our clients to support them in making business decisions. And our clients are experiencing heavily changing markets in media, in products, in consumers, in everything they're facing. And we should define which clients we want to help in there and how we can make use of technology, knowledge we have, experience, and people. So I totally agree that you have to differentiate in the people you need for that to help that client, because that is really what our business is, which model you put behind it or whatever.
So we heard Jeff Reynolds earlier talking about the changing nature of marketing, how money is being spent more, at least from an advertising perspective, going more towards mobile, going more towards digital, that we're going to eclipse in digital versus traditional. And there's efforts being made within the insights industry to support that. But how do you get out in front of those needs and, to Francois's point, see the future before the future is here?
Yeah.
Steve?
I think one of the things that is really important about innovation is that innovation is really a cumulative exercise. Like, innovation doesn't just happen one day. Like, the iPhone didn't just happen one day. So many other innovations had to happen, whether it was glass, it was the communications chips, the whole infrastructure of the internet, all those things that needed to come into play. And you go back through, and you look back through innovations over time, and that's true of all the big innovations. The manufacturer of the automobile needed all these other things to happen. And so, going back to the earlier question, I think one of the critical things to having innovation come alive within an organization is have people who are keeping an eye on kind of the cumulative nature of what's going on outside of the immediate problem at hand. Because that's where other things are happening that people can connect and say, okay, we can apply this to the current problem that we have. And then it takes a certain type of person who's good at doing that. And it often isn't the same person who's really good at executing the day-to-day operations, because they're really focused on the detail versus the big picture.
So we've heard this theme come up a few times, making sure that you're seeing beyond your own world. What can happen outside of insights or potentially outside of marketing in this idea of technology? So how do you, I make a prioritization? What do I look to bring that into my organization? If I'm going to go back to the office tomorrow and make some changes to improve my chances for innovation, what are those steps that I'm going to take to make that happen?
Well, would differentiate again to what the differentiation that you made in terms of marginal and what I called earlier big I innovation. I think first of all, and that goes back to what Liz said, I think it's about your people. You need to foster a climate that allows people to ask tough questions. You need to be challenged, and you need to foster a climate within your own organization to do so. I think that's a starting point. Then for the bigger innovations, I think you need outside help. I don't think that in most of our businesses where everybody is in, or 90% or 100% of our people, sometimes 120%, are in the daily weeds of client service, which always takes priority. You need time and you need outside help. I think many of us would not apply the same methodology that we would apply to our clients' work, to our own business. And we often consult clients how they do product innovation, or take their brand to the next level. How many of us do that with their own business? And I think that's what we got to do.
Those are actually innovations, because I think we could also say that what we call innovation is little, it's little marginal changes. It's taste, it's packaging, and all that. It's not true innovation.
So let's take his question. How many of you have actually done innovation research on your own organization? All right, more than I expected. Congratulations to those people. Yeah, I fully expected less than that, knowing a lot of research organizations, marketing research organizations struggle with marketing. So anyway, moving up, go ahead. Francois?
Yes, to add into that, I think to the question on what companies should do to be more innovative or succeed in innovation, I think that the internet has brought something completely disruptive, which is the ability to co-create, basically, with consumers. Co-creation was something you could do in B2B for ages, because you could sit with your customer and try to find a solution that will be increasing the mutual value for everyone. But this is something on the consumer world was incredibly difficult, and we had proxies for that, bringing people in focus groups, etc. The internet has actually enabled people to come up with a driving force or extended, I will say, groups. And I see that a lot of companies are looking at innovation about, what should we build as internal capability, but probably one of the biggest capabilities is about building the ability to connect outside. How many of you have heard about Procter & Gamble's Connect and Develop? If you can raise your hand. Okay, so I will just talk about it because only a few of you know about it, but it illustrates how a completely paradigm shift in the way you actually structure it can change, complete change in your bottom line. 10 years ago, A.G. Lafley, when he became CEO of P&G for the first time, he noticed that the R&D expenditure, so they were putting a lot of money against R&D, and it was people and machines, etc. And he noticed that the return on his investment was kind of not keeping pace with the cost of the investments in R&D. And so he said, let's change paradigms. Let's become very good at generating very strong insights about what the consumer need is and get those very crisp. And then let's turn to the outside world to actually deliver against those insights and against the challenges. And they move from research and development to connect and develop, meaning they open up the platforms and relationship with academia, with startups, etc., saying every time we got a business challenge, we'll pose that challenge to these communities and let's see the solutions coming back. And they moved in 10 years from having 15% of their innovation that was outside, coming from the outside, to 50%, half of the innovation coming, which they have felt as a dramatic change in the life cycle of time to market, because they reduced that by almost more than 6 months, actually coming up and finding existing solutions. They found the innovations to be more relevant, and ultimately this helped us change the cross-structure of innovation. So when you think innovation structure, you actually can tap into a lot more resources than your own resources. That's my key point.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I think what's required to make that happen is that there has to be room made for it within the organization. And that usually starts at the top. Like there has to be a recognition that innovation is something that is akin to identifying unrealized future revenue. Because it seems like it sometimes gets a bad rap as, oh, we've got a lab and they're doing work, and sometimes they come up with stuff that's interesting, but we don't see how it's going to apply to our next quarter cycle or a few years. It's always got to be tied to, okay, what future revenue are we identifying here? What are the opportunities? And then evaluating those opportunities as they come in.
Yeah, and we have had some of that discussion previously, and a lot of this goes to your point of making sure that the innovation is aligned to the client needs. So as you are framing innovation, be it transformational or marginal, how are you thinking about making sure that there's a revenue generation source tied to this?
Well, I think most of the clients wanted better, smarter, and faster. And you have to have everything in place, technology, process, and people, to realize that. And that is marginal or incremental or whatsoever. But that does make the difference for the client at the end. And that can be smarter, can be by integrated, looking at all kinds of things. Faster can be using much more technology. Smarter could be, okay, it's not only digital, but we have to take everything into account. So we have to be ahead of developments in the digital space. It can be everything, but it doesn't have to be so rigorous as pure innovation in itself. It can be much easier and faster starting tomorrow to make money out of it.
So I want to make sure that we give a couple of minutes for questions from the audience. So we have a question down front here. And I'm going to hand you a mic. Right down front. Here you go. Oh, there.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to pick up on the question of how much. And I think it was Steve that most recently mentioned that. So there are companies that set aside conditional investment budgets or sort of make visible resource commitments in order to go after innovation. And then there are others who sort of hope that it springs out of the wells of people in the organization. I think we all sort of agree that doesn't really work so well. How do you decide? How do you all view how much resources, how much of your effort needs to be set aside? I don't know. I'm sure there's no common metric, but I'm wondering how you think about that and how you'd begin to approach the decision of saying, how much am I going to invest in some fashion in innovation?
Doesn't it depend on how much do you need it? And we could argue that, again, the classic market research agency should probably be investing a lot because, the survival of core business is at risk. I think for clients, it's the same thing. I mean, if you feel that you're in a space where your survival is at risk, it's not a strong, sustainable business, you better be investing an awful lot of time and talent on figuring out the future.
Yeah, I would say as much as you can get would be the pragmatic answer, because there's always less than you'd like. The way I look at it is there should be a core part of the week as people who are dedicated to that innovation side of things as part of a function. And some of it could be just understanding what's going on in other parts of the organization. Part of it's looking at what's going out in the world. And then drawing down the number of ideas, possible innovation efforts, and kind of going lean startup on it, like which ones deserve the time, and having kind of a proving ground. Okay, we're gonna run a test on this and see if it really works the way we thought it did. And then if it does, great, let's move it on to a bigger trial, a bigger effort within the organization. And then if it doesn't, then we move on to the next. And I think that's sort of the trick is you can do so much as a small innovation group. Innovation groups tend to be small because that's where people can move quickly. But as soon as you start involving other parts of the organization, that's you need to have a couple of steps proved out before that happens. So it's a staged approach.
I know Stephen is wanting to jump in on this, but I do want to give an opportunity for any other questions real quick. And we have one in the back over here on the right.
Good morning, Gert Schiller here. Where there's innovation, there's also extinction. Things may be bestowed upon us that we have to leave them behind, or it will be forced upon us to do that. What do you think that we have to leave behind in order to innovate and harvest the innovation? And what would be your suggestion for exit strategies to get out of the situation we're in now so that we can fully leverage innovation? So what's the exit strategy here?
So someone was talking about seeing the future. So what is the future and what do we have to do to prepare for that future? So what's your prediction for 3 or 4 or 5 years out? What is going to be fundamentally different about insights, and how do you prep for that?
Well, it changes, one, and that already started, that we cannot rely on survey only, and that is typically what the research industry is about, and a change in integrating all data that is available, implicit, explicit. So survey will, to a certain extent, be there, but the relevancy of it and role it plays within all kinds of other data sources that are around, those should be integrated. That is changing very fast, and that is changing our business.
Okay, so we're going to go down the line. You've got 5 seconds to predict the future.
I think everybody's got to find his own spot, and I would agree and with what you said, I think. But basically, my statement still is, the industry as such won't exist as long, even 5 years. I think that's a long horizon, and again, we've not done a great job in transforming this industry, and I think it's time to happen.
I think within 5 years, our big multinational clients will leave, to go back to Jeff's presentation earlier this morning, the classic research tools behind for something different.
I'm not quite as dour as that, but I would say that the information flow has to be more fluid, more frictionless between qual, quant, business intelligence, behavioral data. It's all going to be one big data set, and we are going to have to play in that game.
And yeah, to conclude, I think what is not going to change is that innovations that work will be innovations that deliver against an insight, and that will deliver about a true consumer or customer need, and that's not going to change. So I think the opportunity for this industry is to become even better at spotting those trends and those insights, asking the right questions, because the right innovation comes from the right question, and being able to recognize what is actually an interesting innovation that will stick, or something that will just be a nice glimpse in your revenue. I think that's not going to change in the future.
Great, thank you. I want to thank our panelists for a great job. Thank you.